My name is Fernando Marrero, originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, living out of Los Angeles, California. Entertainer, actor, stuntman, former professional wrestler, former Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu martial arts practitioner and competitor. From MMA to BJJ to professional MMA fighting to professional wrestling, and professional wrestling led to an opportunity to, professional acting in Hollywood. And it's just been definitely a journey, to say the least. And I'm immensely, eternally grateful to the Most High. And definitely nothing has ever come easy, so definitely transitioning into acting from the combat sports, background and everything else that I've done. I'm also ex-military, served in the U.S. military, 2 different branches, 2 different stints, prior Air Force, prior Army. So again, it was like starting over in many ways, but I took that same soldier's mentality and that same fighter's mentality, with me,
keep learning, stay hungry, and, pretty much you got to show up prepared. The whole, the opportunity meets preparation type thing. Give the craft or anything that I attempt to do or follow through with as much respect and honor. And, I took acting classes for about 4 years, from 2016 to 2020, got a manager, got an agent, and just constantly in this business, it's about investment. You have to constantly reinvest into yourself as the artist. And what I love about this industry is the ability to express yourself, take on new challenges, and constantly evolve. Acting allows me to pretty much channel everything I've been through physically and mentally, into storytelling. And then starting professional wrestling, I was a bit older for that than the typical person that starts. I was about 35 when I started professional wrestling.
Wow.
Back in 2015. And then just because of my background and my mindset, my, mentally tough disposition, my fortitude, I just had, what it takes to make that transition smoothly. And I went from professional wrestling and take me long to catch on and get trained up and start competing and traveling the road and doing independent promotions and independent shows with some of the who's who and some of the best in the business, past, present, and future. And that opportunity led to actually working with Adam Sandler and Terry Crews back in 2016. That was my break into the industry, where I was tapped Farley. Then subsequently got my SAG eligibility and joined the SAG Actors Union. And that was for Sandy Wexler. In 2016, I came in as a stuntman. And then here we are. It's like a full circle moment. Here we are, 2025, almost 10 years later, from working with Adam Sandler for the first time. And then almost 30 years later from the sequel, it's only fitting that here we are, part of the franchise, Happy Gilmore 2. And I want to establish, a mindset of growth, of gratitude, just always constantly staying grounded, no matter where the journey takes me. I focus on growth and gratitude, evolution and elevation. And for me, that's what it's all about. And, I speak of my grandparents constantly and heavily. It's always heartfelt because, watching my grandparents do what they did. And for so long, my grandfather, immigrant from Puerto Rico, he had, a son from his first marriage. He served, in the Army, during World War II, the Army National Guard down there in Puerto Rico, immigrated to this country in 1944. And then my grandmother, Black American woman, she was just a phenomenal woman. She had 10 children from her, first husband, who had left and abandoned them. And, throughout that time, fate, destiny, it was ordained for my grandfather and my grandmother to meet. My grandfather accepted her and all 10 of her kids and gave her 2 more. And my mom is the baby of 13 kids of the blended family. 1 from my grandfather, 10 from my grandmother from their previous situations coming together and then having 2 more. So a total of 13 kids. And my grandfather worked, 27 years for Lucan's Steel Mill. It's a steel industrial production plant in Coatesville, Pennsylvania. Was one of the major mass producers of steel for the United States government during the World Wars and all that stuff, and just throughout the decades. And got hurt on the job and literally broke his back and was in a body cast for an extended period of time. And living off of, $600 a month
pension that he received at the time when I was a kid. And then my grandmother, working many different jobs and holding the fort down for my grandfather. And, since he couldn't really, work and all that. And then, for the family, and just having multiple jobs and just still being there, still being the matriarch of the family and like the glue keeping everything together. See that, it was just always inspiring. And I just always wanted to, replicate that and give that and whatever I could do to be a vessel of just love and peace and empathy and, compassion. Because like I said, I grew up without that. I went through so many different trials and tribulations throughout life. And, I'm a father myself. And, I just always knew I wanted to replicate the love and compassion that my grandparents had, bestowed upon me. And